Hi, everybody. Thanks for this chance to get together today. My name is Todd Franco from Report for America. It's a job title that's still new to me. I can't shake the old one, which makes today's gathering actually pretty cool. A year ago, I was editor of the Youngstown Vindicator, and it was this time last year that we were closing down the 150-year-old paper. And as much as it was a travesty for us as employees and my former colleague Mark, we knew as we were closing it down that it was also going to be a travesty for the community and the impact that lost storytelling. A lot of the readers shared with immediately what it was going to, how it was going to affect their lives. But we also knew from our jobs that when you take 40 storytellers out of the community, that it's a significant hit. The job I've had since has been part of being a solution to that. And Report for America has just had a great opportunity across the country. Our mission is to catalyze local philanthropy, to have a role in trying to make local journalism happen. We're aware that local philanthropy on its own is not going to completely replace ventures like the Vindicator, but we also want to be sure that there's some vehicle in place to stop the shrinking, that there's some investment in storytelling. And philanthropy is just one of those tools. I work across the country doing it. It's been my job 2 weeks after the Vindicator closed. I started with RFA. And while I've been doing it across the country, this has been a moment I've been waiting for, was the chance to do it here in my hometown in Youngstown. And I'm so grateful to have had the chance to work with you all and to have the Thomases Family Endowment of the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation be the first one to take the step. Erwin Thomases had a great legacy in the Valley, and I gotta believe that he's been thrilled to have this event happen today, with Thomases being the first group to invest in Youngstown journalism in a philanthropic way. And with that, Andy, I'm just thrilled that your group has taken this step, and just want to congratulate you for recognizing what Youngstown needs, and that there is a way to change it, and thrilled to have you do this.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Baroff, and Erwin Thomases, the creator of the Thomases Family Endowment of the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation, was my stepfather. I'm honored to represent the fund today, along with fellow distribution committee member Myra Benedict and the Federation's Financial Resource Development Director, Lisa Long. The closing of our local paper, the Youngstown Vindicator, left a hole in our community and deeply concerned members of the committee. We wanted to help ensure that the local news still had a strong and supported voice, especially in these uncertain times. The idea of community-funded journalism is exciting to us, and we are proud to be amongst the first funders of Report for America's work here in the Valley. Erwin Thomases loved his adopted community of Youngstown and wanted to ensure that the local Jewish community did not merely survive, but rather thrive. He envisioned that supporting economic development, social, health, education, and arts-related programs would provide the necessary impetus to propel progress within the community. My stepfather was a righteous man who always sought to promote social justice. Erwin was a true embodiment of the meaning of the Hebrew word tzedakah, derived from the word meaning righteousness, and the Hebrew words tikkun olam, interpreted as repairing the world. Erwin and Ada, his first wife, and then Jane, my mother, and his second wife, all believed in tzedakah and tikkun olam as sacred missions and as their primary ethical tenets. Erwin chose to engage in his philanthropy anonymously, recognizing that the importance of the work far surpassed the worker. In 1996, Erwin established an anonymous donor-advised fund at the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation. The fund, which he used as a continuation of his personal giving, became the foundation for his endowment that was established upon his death in 2011. Only then did people learn of his generosity. The endowment has distributed millions of dollars to organizations in the Mahoning Valley, across the United States, as well as in Israel. Erwin's charitable principles and steadfast pursuit of justice are still very much alive. He exemplified what it is to be a mensch, defined as a good soul, and lived every day in a way that solidified his legacy. When faced with difficult choices, we on the committee often ask ourselves, what would Erwin do? The answer to this question always steers those of us on the committee in the right direction. It is our hope that through our giving, we've made and will continue to make this community and the world a better place to live. And I guess I'm handing off to Mark Sweetwood of Mahoning Matters.
Thank you, Andy, and thanks, Todd. Hello to Myra and Lisa. You know, I have to be honest, it's hard to come up with the words to convey the gratitude that the Mahoning Matters team has for the generous gift from the Thomases Family Endowment of the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation. You know, when Mandy and I first began to decide an important area to focus on, should be fortunate enough to be selected by Report for America. Really, the city of Youngstown's financial plight that we knew at the time was, precarious, and its very future sort of relied on some deep reporting. And as Todd mentioned, that was one of the things that was most fearful when the Vindicator closed, was who's going to do some of that deep reporting. And we were fortunate indeed to have been selected by RFA, and to have found a wonderful reporter in Ellen Wagner. And now we're honored with this generous gift, and we couldn't be more grateful. We all know the battles we face. You know, we're here amidst a pandemic. We've got the battle to sustain worthy journalism, and we've got the battle to sustain our once teeming city. And these are battles, I think, that as a community we all share. And that's, I think, really the part of this presentation today that really fills me with the most hope. I think this is a sort of a shared value that we all have, and that's really important. You've given us a powerful legacy to live up to, by the way, just as your organization aims to make this community and the world a better place to live. We share that goal, and we're going to endeavor to really live up to those tenets of the Thomases Family Endowment. And it's an incredible legacy, and we're very proud to be a part of it. So, Mahoning Matters was founded just about 9 months ago, in October 2019, with the mission to tell the stories that matter in Mahoning County and empower citizens to engage their community with a focus on solutions. And your generosity is going to help us broaden that mission. And on behalf of the Mahoning Matters team, our Compass Experiment staff, the McClatchy organization, and the Google crew, we just want to say a very heartfelt thank you.
Andy, one of the first things I wanted to know is about Erwin, and two traits, I guess. One is his passion to stay quiet about his help, but also I liked in talking through the process over the last several weeks, his willingness to take risks and bring light to certain parts of the community that he thought, hey, others should know that there's a need out here. Can you just tell me some stories about him?
Well, I think he was humble, and to him, I don't think he believed it was a risk that he was taking. It was just something he always believed in. From well long before I ever knew him, he was always helping those who needed help. And he was humble, as I said, and so he did it anonymously. But after he passed away, he wanted people to know about his generosity, and he wanted it to encourage others to be the same way.
Yeah, I think one of the things we see across the country is, and again, which gets back to just this gratefulness to have a person start and have a group lead, is that when a community sees one group start to step up and recognize that this institution in their community that had been funded for decades, going back to Ben Franklin, been funded for decades through the whims of advertising, Walgreens, the McKelvey's, Strauss's, and that's changed. They have that education that it's gone, but then there's this new education that, oh, this group just decided to fund it. I guess we'll take a look at it as well. So I think that's the real magic in your stepping forward, is that we think that as others get to understand and learn that we don't have to see closure forever. We can see certain things open up. Obviously, the Matters team, McClatchy and Google stepped up to open in October, but with this step today, it's a further measure that we can do something to open things up rather than just shut down.
And I think everyone is, and we were discussing Margaret Sullivan's book, Ghosting the News, before we went live with this. I think everyone is seeing those stories. The Vindicator almost feels like the first domino. It was sort of toppled there. And I think we're starting to see this story from Youngstown to Cleveland to parts beyond repeat itself. And maybe what groups like yours are going to help do is let people know there is a way to save, their local journalism. They don't have to feel helpless, that maybe there's a way people can band together and put their, best foot forward and make a real change. And I think that's what this really represents. It's almost erasing some of the powerlessness, I think, that we've all faced in the past year. And I think that's kind of the most exciting part of this.
So Myra has been fun to meet through this whole process. Started at the sisterhood, right, Myra?
Right. Yeah.
So, and then Myra's children are in the industry, right? Your daughter and son-in-law, your daughter and son. And then we connect through Naples, and Myra's still learning her feet about this whole issue. And now all of a sudden, I think you should be giving a presentation on this, Myra, between Youngstown and Naples and Margaret Sullivan and everything else.
Well, I invited Todd to speak to a women's and men's group in Naples and about Report for America and the crisis in local journalism. And the people who were in charge loved the idea. They were fascinated by it. So he did speak, and it was great. I was proud. And then I was put onto this recent webinar with Margaret Sullivan and Dan Rather, and they were being interviewed about her new book that Mark just mentioned. And I learned so much from Todd, listening to Todd, that when she mentioned things like news deserts and ghosting newspapers, and I was familiar with it. One of the things she said that I wrote down, and I'm going to read, she was talking about how almost all institutions, schools, law enforcement, corporations are less trusted now than decades ago. It's not just the news media, but there is more trust in local news organizations than in the national media. That makes it all the more crucial that our society finds ways to sustain and reinvent these local news sources that are under siege. I thought that was pretty appropriate for what you're all doing.
Yeah, and that's spot on. I think, people confuse, whether you like Chris Cuomo or Sean Hannity, that's a completely different world. But I think a lot of the citizens confuse what Mark's doing and the Matters team and local journalism. They confuse it with these talking pieces, and that becomes journalism. But so much of what Youngstown needs is not Chris Cuomo or Sean Hannity. It is, who's going to go into the South Side, right? Which is your goal, Mark. Who's going to go into the South Side and trace the impact, whether it's COVID or Youngstown struggles, on some of these families who just need a voice. And to me, that's been 30 years. Which, by the way, Mark was my first boss. I don't know if that secret's gotten out. So
it took you 30 years. Usually you say that my boss hired you, and you cut me out of the process. So,
in spirit of brevity, I was trying to skip that 4-month check of my life and advance to my 4th month when Mark became my boss. But my passion, as much as I get into the national stuff, I love local news, and I just have seen the effect on it for things that are critical and watchdoggy, but also just the celebratory. I tease folks about wanting to know what's going on in facilities like the JCC. Where can I go for a fish fry? And so much of that is the texture of a community. And I think when we make investments such as what you're doing today, it's about recognizing that it's not about fake news. It's about your neighbors on the South Side. It's about vital institutions like the JCC and just what they're doing to make tomorrow better. So that to me is the passion. I'm so thrilled that you've done this.
And there's a quiet casualty. We discussed ghosting the news and the plight of the newspaper industry. But a lot of organizations don't really have their own in-house media people. And, Elise Skolnick for JCC just does a wonderful job. And that helps small organizations like us help keep the community involved, because, news is in all these different little compartments. There's the long form journalism that we do, that's a little more, sometimes more investigatory. There's making sure that the press releases get out in a quick and timely fashion. There's we're doing more with columnists these days, especially during the pandemic, and just trying to let people have an eyeball in the world that maybe they can't get out and see every day. And so there's all these little components, and And just having a person like that who just is just a important part of that whole organization. It's terrifically helpful, and because we want to tell all the stories, we have the means, we have the opportunities. We're amassing an audience. Last night we did our crowdcast on race in the Valley, and got just, which is that journalism? I don't know, but we got a lot of people exposed to a discussion that was, I think, vital for us to keep having. And so, everything helps, and everything falls into that vast category of local news. And we're just really excited to be expanding like we are, and very happy for this sort of donation that helps us broaden our mission. So again, thank you.
So Lisa, what do we do next? You kind of guided us down this path, these 2 groups, 3 groups. What's your expectations of us, and how do we march on successful?
Sure. Well, Mark, you and I, you were one of my welcomers to this community when I moved to the Valley with my family now 8 years ago. And I used to be a journalist as well. And what we're so excited about with this is it's telling those stories. Like you said, Mark, Elise can give all the stories in the world, but if we don't have the outlets to show what's going on with all the Federation agencies, Heritage Manor, our nursing home, our assisted living facility, the Jewish Community Center, we need an outlet to tell these stories. And I think a lot of times the Valley and our community get really kind of glass half empty. And this is a way to make sure that we can keep our eyes on, yes, the true challenges that there are, but also see that the glass is half full, and there's a lot of people who want to keep it that way. And so we're excited to see where this partnership takes us. We're excited to see the stories that come out about our community, and really bring to light the challenges of our community that hopefully groups like ours and other groups can come forward to help fix in as much as we can. We're not just the Jewish Federation, we're a federation in a larger community. And as Andy said, it's our tenet of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. If we can play a smart and small role in that, then we're living up to Erwin's legacy.
Well, thank you very much. So you're now part of the team, not part of the RFA payroll, but definitely part of the RFA team. And just eager for all of you to just carry this story on, that we don't have to keep losing. We can add to it, and we can make things happen. It's different. But I tease folks that if I'd asked you to invest $100 in my idea in 2010, where strangers are going to rent their homes to strangers, and I'm going to call it Airbnb, you would have said, Todd, that's the dumbest idea in the world, but it's taken off. And I fully believe
Who was the first one to tell you that was a bad idea, for the record?
Probably you.
Yes. And guess what we're doing at the end of the month? I'm doing doing my first one. So
nice. So I think this idea can take off, and as communities, and that's what we're seeing around the country. But it's investors such as you all believing in it, investing in it, and also making sure others are aware that, hey, we've jumped into this boat, and come along with us, and let's make sure it's not a jobs program for me or for Mark or for Jessica or Justin, and it's a community vehicle. And the minute you stop telling your story, I think your community stops growing. So thank you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.